The Warriors season came to an end, and now focus on one of the most intriguing free agents on the market, Jonathan Kaminga, and there's trade buzz already growing. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Going to be an insane NBA offseason. Hit the subscribe button. We'll keep you in the know on everything going on the transaction game. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, the Warriors, the Wolves made sure they did not have to see Steph Curry again. You could see that motivation was there to end that thing in 5 because Steph Curry was on track to come back in Game 6.
Yeah, I don't know who it was, but Ant was talking to somebody a couple games ago. Oh, it was GP, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you guys are just trying to wait until Steph comes back or something like that." So yeah, they definitely wanted to try to wrap this up ASAP and not have to deal with that extra variable, right?
Exactly. Great killer instinct from the Wolves. The Warriors made no qualms about it. They just say, hey, yeah, this is it. We're trying to win one game so we can have Steph for Game 6 and Game 7. And the Wolves said, oh, no. We're slamming that door shut when we get this opportunity. So nice job there by Minnesota. But now we've got to focus on Jonathan Kaminga, what happens with him in free agency. Obviously, unfortunate to not see Steph Curry again this season, but the Warriors will regroup. However, Jonathan Kaminga, I don't think he's going to be on the team next year. Already being reported by The Athletic that the Warriors and Jonathan Kaminga's camp are mutually expected to explore a sign and trade this offseason. Kaminga will be able to get the contract he desires while Golden State receives assets in return. That's the one saving grace here, Donnie. If you're Golden State, there was a lot of criticism for the Warriors for not coming to terms on a contract extension for Jonathan Kaminga. The one thing, and the Warriors were far from the only team to do this, but the Warriors pointed to free agency this year and said, cool, yeah, I guess you could leave in free agency, but where are you going? Nobody's got cap space with the exception of maybe the Brooklyn Nets could make a big offer for Jonathan Kaminga. And on top of that, Kaminga is a restricted free agent. So the Warriors are fairly protected here against losing Kaminga for nothing. So I don't think there was a ton of motivation to come to terms on an extension with them that if they weren't comfortable with it.
Yeah, definitely. This has been an ongoing thing anyway. And, really, in hindsight, like I said, last time we talked about this, he probably should have took the offer that they had for him previously. And, we'll see what winds up happening with him. But, I mean, if the price is too much, they're definitely not going to match it, of course.
Well, and that's just it. Could there be a team out there? Could it be the Nets? Could it be a team that says, hey, we're going to throw enough money at Jonathan Kaminga that we're going to get the Warriors to blink? Certainly that could happen. More likely is we're going to be talking sign and trade. So what would that look like and why? Well, from the Warriors side of things, the reason why they'd be moving on from Kaminga is that his propensity to look for his own shot at the expense of the flow of Golden State's offense bothered the coaching staff. During a late season game against the Blazers, team sources say Kerr was incensed after several instances in which Kaminga looked off Steph Curry to create his own offense. Generally, that's a bad idea. Right. If Curry is open, give the ball to Curry.
You don't look off Curry, man.
No.
You give Curry the ball. But some of that is that's just a lot of what their system is. The system is designed to get the ball 2 steps. So if you're Kaminga, well, you may have thought you had something else. Well, the coaching staff clearly sees that Steph has an opportunity and they value that more. So you have to give Steph the ball, right? It is what it is. And there have been talks about that and then his decision-making and processing speed in their offense, and that's just stuff that's bothered them the entire time.
So where could Jonathan Kaminga actually land, and what would a sign and trade look like? We're going to get to that right after this. There's nothing like seeing a playoff game in person. That's why I'm thrilled to have SeatGeek as the sponsor of this video. With over 28 million downloads, SeatGeek is the #1 rated ticketing app. There are over 70,000 events listed on SeatGeek, including concerts, sports, festivals, and more. Right now, you can get tickets to the MLB season and the NBA playoffs. I love going to live events using SeatGeek. For me, it's about the value. SeatGeek has your back. Each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So you look for the green dots. Green means good, red means bad. Plus, every ticket is backed by their buyer guarantee. I love that. Takes all of the worry out of buying tickets. And I came through for you guys. Use our code Bulletin10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off any tickets with promo code Bulletin10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Again, big shout out to SeatGeek. Super thrilled to have them on.
Thank you, SeatGeek. We love you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. See, Gig, you guys use that link in the description down below. So if you're a team that wants Jonathan Kaminga and you believe in the five-game sample against Minnesota, averaged 21 points on 54% shooting, 42% from three. Now, his three-point shooting was the big question mark for the Golden State Warriors with him coming into the season, and he did not shoot well enough. 31% from three. That's not enough to allow you to play Draymond, to play Kaminga, Draymond, and one of the bigs out there on the floor. Quentin Post obviously came around and gave them a floor spacer, but can you really get away with all three of those players on the floor at the same time, like a Trace Jackson Davis? Probably not, and that definitely ate into his minutes. But if you buy his upside, which I still think he has plenty of upside, teams could trade for him. Now, Donnie, one of the challenges, though, is if you accept the player via a sign and trade, it's going to trigger a hard cap at that first tier apron. So for some teams, that would be a big problem. So when you look at some of the title contending teams, say, the team that just beat the Warriors, if it's Minnesota, they would have a very difficult time if they triggered a hard cap at that first tier apron. So that fact alone is going to eliminate a good chunk of the market to begin with. But what kind of team do you think would be interested in a player like Jonathan Kaminga?
Well, I think a team that's willing to take their time with him, and he can go in there, maybe be their second or third option. So that typically translates to a young team, of course, and a team that's in a transitional period can take their time with him and give him room to make mistakes, room to develop and grow. And it's just more so on his timeline. I think that's a team that should be targeting him for sure.
Yeah, it's a team that is not looking to win immediately. In fact, when you dig into the advanced metrics, not great. Kaminga has played 386 career playoff minutes, +4 net rating when he's out, -12.8 net rating when he plays. Now, that could be somewhat skewed by this Minnesota series in which he was playing a lot of minutes and Steph Curry was not on the floor. That's obviously going to matter with the Golden State Warriors. So I don't want to look at that and just say, see, this is positive proof that Jonathan Kaminga is trash and that's it, and he's terrible. But I do think you've got to temper expectations a bit if you're a team that's trading for him and understand that you'll need to be patient as you're trying to develop him into the player that you ultimately hope he's going to be. When we look at teams that I think he would fit on, obviously the Brooklyn Nets would be an intriguing one simply because they could offer up enough money to make the Golden State Warriors blink. Do you feel comfortable enough doing that, though, with him in terms of knowing what he is as a player? Is he a guy where you should be offering him enough money as a restricted free agent that the Warriors will say it's not worth it and they'll let him go?
I wonder what that line is for Golden State. Like, what is the line where they're like, that's too rich for our blood? Because I don't think a team's going to offer him a max or anything remotely close to that. He may not even get close to half of a max. I don't know, right? But I do wonder what that line is. Like, is it like MLE around there? That's too rich for us. We don't want that. I don't know, but it just depends on how they value him and his long term on the team, right? But
So just for context, back in October, the rumor was the Warriors did not want to cross 30 million for him per season, and Kaminga wanted 35 million plus.
Yeah. And that's why I said he should have just took the deal. Other dudes took the deal in a similar range. Like I believe Jalen Suggs and a couple other guys took that deal, and he should have just took it, right? Because he wouldn't be in the situation. But I can never fault someone for betting on themselves, right? You take the gamble. It just didn't work out. The entire season was up and down with him and his availability and playing time. So
to a lesser degree, he joins Dennis Schroeder on the list of cautionary tales of guys who gambled on themselves and it didn't work out. Now, who knows? Maybe there is a team that wants to pay him $35 million this summer. I don't see it though. I don't think anybody wants to give him $35 million. He didn't have a good enough season. The big concern was the shooting. He did not quiet down those concerns. Nobody's going to look at a 5-game sample size of him shooting 42% from three and say, there it is. There it is. He's all good now. He can shoot the three. He shot 31%, and I'm rounding up to get there during the regular season on a team with the gravity of Steph Curry on it. I don't think he quieted the concerns enough to get the big contract that he wants. Is he still going to get millions upon millions of dollars? Yes, but I think hindsight being 2020, he should have taken the offer that the Warriors had for him, even if it was just a little bit south of 30 million. I don't see him approaching that number in free agency this year.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is with him is like with Golden State, I mean, they've already said that they don't feel like he can, for various reasons. They've been saying it prior to the Jimmy trade, all that, but they really don't feel like he can be out there in certain situations. So that artificially will cap what he's able to do for you anyway. He may just be a 20-minute a night bench guy. And so what do you value somebody, young prospect or not, if they're just a 20-minute a night, sometimes bench guy that you're going to play? He can play in lineups that have the shooting around. Like that's where guys like Post and Pods and of course Curry makes all that stuff go away. If you're plugging him into a lineup with Draymond and those guys, then sure, right? Or maybe even Jimmy and those guys, as long as there's enough shooting on the court and space, it can work. But it's just hard to say that, your three best players, you got to separate them and cut and splice them in different ways to make it to where you can make this young guy work. And a lot of Warrior fans I've seen, every time we talk about this, we get comments. People are saying, oh, he's nothing more than an athlete. He's not really going to live up to any sort of major potential or all-star, all these other things. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think Kuminga's ceiling potentially could be? Like, aside from just being the guy that goes to a bad team and puts up 25 a game on a bad team, because I don't think that's all that impressive. Like, it's nice, but if you're going to get 30 shots a night, I mean, okay, right? So what do you think his actual ceiling is?
I think his ceiling would be like I think he could make an all-star, especially if he goes east. I think he could make an all-star team. He could go somewhere where he puts up the numbers needed to make an all-star team. Is he a player that will affect winning? Is he a 1A on a championship team? No.
No.
Is he a second guy on a championship team? I would say no. And that's where you run into some problems. Now, again, he's still a young player. I don't want to say that's definitively what he is forever. Because we don't know. Like these guys can grow, they develop, they change. The dude's 22 years old. He's got plenty of time to grow and develop. But as of right now, what can we project him to be? I think he's probably at his best as a third guy. And that's where it's actually problematic, Tony, because with what he brings, what is his main skill? It's putting the ball in the basket. Does he do enough of the other stuff? The rebounding, steals, defense, blocking shots, the hustle stuff, getting all the other stats. Can he do that stuff to a high enough degree? Probably not. And if he tops out as a number 3 guy on a club, that's what you need a number 3 guy to do. All the other things, not just putting the ball in the basket. And so that's where I think you can look at him and say he's probably not a guy that a top contending team is going to go after unless he's able to evolve his game, which is still possible. He's able to grow, but I do think he tops out as kind of like a third best player on a team. Maybe he makes an all-star team or two or something like that. If he could put up some good numbers on a bad team being like a second option, that's probably what we're looking at here. As far as where he could actually land and who should consider trading for him, I look at some of the teams that have that time, that have that opportunity.
Charlotte.
Exactly. Nice. That's exactly where I was going to go. Now, the problem is they already have Brandon Miller there.
Yeah. And you can have a couple wings out there. Yeah, you can do it.
Exactly. You're not at a point right now, if you're Charlotte, where you're worried too much about fit. You're just going out there and you're getting it done. And Grant Williams, will he come back? Will he not? Charlotte would be an interesting team. The Washington Wizards could take a gamble.
I'm not worried about like Grant Williams, though. I'm not going to.
No. Grant, especially coming off of an injury. And that,
I'm not going to let that decide what we do with the guy, but kudos to him, of course.
I could see some team that says, you know what? We're not trying to win this season anyway. Let's let Jonathan Kaminga put up good numbers on a bad team, and let's see what he can become. And so those are the types of team. Now, what really interests me, Donnie, is when we go back and we look, we say, okay, what was the last thing the Warriors did when they blew a draft pick? James Wiseman, right? A number 2 overall, but man, how painful is that? A number 2 pick and it doesn't pan out. But what did they do? They ultimately bit the bullet and they said, let's go get a player that fits, that value-wise is nowhere near what we hoped James Wiseman would be, but we know fits our system. That was Gary Payton II. I do wonder if we're going to see something similar here in terms of what the Warriors actually want to get back in return. When you look at a team like Washington, is there a way that you could get like a Marcus Smart or something like that for Golden State, a veteran who maybe doesn't quite have as much value or not nearly as much upside, but somebody who's ready to win right now? That's what I think the Warriors ultimately will do here. Try to flip Jonathan Kaminga. It hurts that he was a 9th overall pick at one point, and now you're trading him away for kind of a grizzled veteran type. But it's what they did with James Wiseman. I think it's what the Warriors are going to do here with Kaminga as well. They'll flip him in a sign and trade to a team that's got the time and patience to let him grow, and they're going to get a guy that they think can plug into their rotation and be a part of their system immediately.
Yeah, as long as it's a cerebral player, then I think they can figure out a way to make it work. A guy that can make those quick decisions, read
Sure.
and react. And I think that's somebody that they would be able to make it work with. That's why like the Schroeder thing
Mhm.
kind of didn't work because it just wasn't, it's not that he can't play that way. It's that you need to have a certain player type with him as well to really maximize what Schroeder does, like rolling cut bigs and stuff. They didn't really have that as much. He needs to play a lot of pick and roll. They don't really do that. They default to, pace and space and moving the ball and then fall on pick and roll if they need to. The Warriors do. But I wanted to ask you, like, yeah, I like Charlotte. I think the Wizards could be fun.
Sure.
But what about a team like Miami potentially? Do you think there's any like potential? Because I think, Pat was saying that they're going to be changing up the team a good bit. I actually think that if you put him in a system where you predefine his role, tell him what he needs. Okay, well, that's kind of what's already kind of happening here, to be fair.
Right.
But maybe with a little bit more wiggle room because Miami isn't expected to do anything. Maybe under Spo, he could flourish a little bit. We see them always turn in and out guys that are, able to play above their means, right?
So Miami they've got an early termination option on Duncan Robinson. They've got Davion Mitchell's a restricted free agent, and right now they're about 14 million below the first apron. So they do have a little bit of wiggle room, well, almost 15 million below the first apron. So they have a little bit of wiggle room there.
Nice. Yeah.
Could you package together a few players? Sure, he'd make some sense there. Now, how much do you believe in Heat culture without Jimmy Butler? And obviously we know the Heat and the Warriors have already made a trade with the Jimmy Butler deal. I was surprised that Kaminga wasn't part of the Jimmy Butler deal, but what could you get back? Are we talking about Andrew Wiggins going back to Golden State?
Ironically, Wiggins was good for them. Like, I think Wiggins would be really good on this team right now. Like, I actually, especially with Jimmy in tow, I think Wiggins would be great.
I do wonder, though, is Kaminga disciplined enough, or would he just drive Eric Spoelstra crazy?
Yeah, that's why it sounded good in my head, but then as I was putting it out there, I was like, it's kind of a similar situation, right? Like,
how about Portland? How about Portland? As a young up-and-coming team, I know they've already got Denny Avdia on the wing, but you've got Robert Williams, you've got Jeremy Grant. The Blazers don't have any need for those guys. Anthony Simons now Simons only 25. I don't think they have to move on, but there's some pieces here in Portland that they've needed to move for a little while. They can be patient with a guy like Jonathan Kaminga. Maybe Matisse Thybulle picks up this option. God, he'd be great on the perimeter for Golden State. That's another team that I look at and say, okay, that they could make sense as a landing spot for Kaminga. And the two sides already worked together with the Gary. It got a little messy, but they did work together on the Gary Payton II trade.
Yeah, would they be able to pull back a bigger salary like a Jeremy Grant?
What, the Warriors?
Yeah.
They would still have to send out more salary in the trade because they wouldn't want to trigger that first tier hard cap. Let me double check and see exactly. Whoops, that's Houston. See exactly where they're at here. In terms of first tier, well, they actually have first apron space, but they have to, they would have to lose Kevon Looney and Gary Payton II. And I don't think they really want to do that. And then you're going to take back salary for Kaminga. The flexibility is there potentially, but you still have to fill out the rest of your roster, and that's where things get tricky.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to look to trade a guy like Moody, maybe some of the other guys on the periphery on this team. I wonder about that, but I think this team could look very different next year. So.
Sure.
I don't think Kaminga is going to stick around either. I think for sure he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And if you're Kaminga, you're hoping to go to a young team that's got minutes available for you, ideally a starting position where you can play 30 minutes a night and get your shot up to show what you can do and really get the opportunity to play and make mistakes and learn from them, because that's kind of just not, it's not to say that he hasn't had that opportunity on the Warriors sporadically. He has, but I think he just needs that night in, night out consistency. And he hasn't really been able to have that over the last year or two.
No. And the Warriors have not been, he hasn't played at a level that would require the Warriors.
Exactly.
To give it to
I don't
him.
really blame them
on
either.
Golden State.
Correct.
But yeah, this will be he is one of the most fascinating free agents because of the restricted tag this summer. Of course, this is going to be the summer of trades. We're going to be talking about Giannis. We're going to be talking about Kevin Durant and all the other guys that are going to be out there. I think we're going to see some big moves. But what happens to Jonathan Kaminga is going to be a very important piece to this overall puzzle of the NBA summer and what the Warriors get back. The way their season ended left a bad taste in their mouth. They're going to want to come back with a vengeance next season. They know they have a finite window here with Steph Curry, with Jimmy Butler, with Draymond Green. I think they're going to go try to add a piece using Jonathan Kaminga. The question is, which team wants to sign up for Kaminga and which team is willing to pay him the amount of money that he wants? But I think it's pretty clear the Warriors They want to move on from the Jonathan Kaminga business. Jonathan Kaminga, he wants to move on from the Warriors business. I think he's played his last game in Golden State.
Yeah, I can agree more. It's just interesting to see where he'll wind up landing. So we'll see what happens.
All right, everybody, let us know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Where do you think Jonathan Kaminga will ultimately land? Don't forget to subscribe right here to the channel as well. Until next time, see ya and stay safe.